The City of Bangor is seeking more than $1.25 million and counting from the owners of the Bangor Mall to address alleged code violations contained in one of two ongoing lawsuits. Brittany McCatton has more from the courtroom.
The civil trial against Namdar, the group that owns the mall property, began in Bangor Thursday morning. The judge is hearing arguments regarding both lawsuits the city filed against Namdar last year. One case alleges code violations related to the mall's roof, parking lot, and sign. The other accuses Namdar of failing to properly maintain stormwater and sewage infrastructure. Thursday's witnesses testified about sinkholes that opened near the mall last year, allowing sewage to flow onto private property and a nearby stream. The city says the damaged stormwater line is the mall's responsibility to fix, and they've failed to do so. In all, the city is asking the judge to order Namdar to pay nearly $1.3 million in penalties plus reimbursements and come up with a plan to fix the issues. That number could increase daily until certain conditions are met. Namdar's attorney alleges there's another company partly responsible for some of these issues, but they haven't been included in any litigation. He says Namdar is in the process of making a number of repairs requested in both lawsuits and plans to complete the rest of them in the future. The trial continues on Friday. Brittany McCatton, WABI News, Bangor.